Going to be talking about the Age of Exploration. We've already talked a little bit about what an explorer actually is. What you watched the FloCab that has what the Age of Exploration was, but we're going to talk about it with a little bit more depth. We are going to answer some questions after we finish reading this, so make sure if you need to listen to this recording again, if you need to reread again. Obviously, when you go through to answer the questions, you're welcome to listen to this or to have your story pulled back up. But let's just read through this, discuss it a little bit, and then we'll get into the questions. Humans have been exploring since the beginning of time. One famous group of early explorers was the Vikings. The Vikings traveled to trade and steal from other countries around 800 AD. They were like pirates. The Vikings reached North America many years before Christopher Columbus did. However, the Vikings were overthrown in Europe, so their explorations ended. Almost 500 years passed between the time of the Viking expeditions and the start of the Age of Exploration. So the Vikings is actually where we're going to start on our next social studies lesson. We're going to kind of focus in on the Vikings. They were definitely an interesting group of people. They were not a warm and fuzzy group. So this part where it says "and steal from," they definitely didn't come in and say, well, let's make some nice trades. They pretty much took what they wanted. But this happened many, many years before the Age of Exploration, and those are the explorers that we're going to spend most of our time talking about. But the Vikings were kind of the first group to do that. In the 1200s, there was an Italian explorer named Marco Polo. You guys have probably heard the name Marco Polo, more than likely from the pool game, but Marco Polo was an actual person. He left Italy for China to find goods to sell in Europe. Polo kept a journal of his travels. He wrote down many descriptions of the amazing things he saw. The journals were published after he died. They inspired many other men to explore and seek trade in Asia. An all-land trade route called the Silk Road was started. The Silk Road connected China to Europe. It allowed the trade of Asian goods like spices, silk, and other goods. So Marco Polo was important not just for his travels, but also the fact that his travel inspired so many other explorers to begin exploring. So I think it's kind of interesting that he wasn't a big name until, unfortunately, after he had passed. So he wasn't always recognized while he was alive. But he definitely was an inspiration to a lot of people. And he was a big inspiration in finding that Silk Road. So that was a big route. And at the end, I'll pull it up so you guys can see. Actually, we'll just do that real quick right now. So let's pull up a Silk Road map. So let's see how I want to do this. This one I like. So Europe over here, right? So these are the countries that we're going to be talking about. That's like England, Italy, Spain, the countries that we're going to focus on where the explorers came from. So they went all the way from this Europe area, the Middle East area, and there was a way that they connected that all the way over to China. Because if you notice, this is a huge, huge piece of land. And being able to connect those two without having to go all the way out and around the other land masses. And also, these were really almost kind of like two different worlds at the time. The things that they had in China, they didn't have here. So they wanted to make sure they were able to trade those things back and forth. So the Silk Road was a really, really important thing during this time. Not always the easiest thing, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But let's get back into our reading. There we go. Many Europeans wanted to use the Silk Road to become wealthy. However, there were two main issues with the Silk Road. First, there were middlemen controlling the Silk Road. These men lived along that road, so if we look back at our map, so they would live at different places along this route, and they controlled the trading. They charged Europeans high prices to trade, which made trading less profitable. So as they walked down, they were saying, okay, well, you can trade here, but you owe us a fee for trading. The second problem with the Silk Road was that some countries, like Spain and Portugal, were too far away from it. So if we look back here, if this is where the Silk Road starts in all of these countries over here in Europe, that's still a ways just to get to the Silk Road. So that'd take an awful lot of time to get there. And then after that, you still have to travel this entire Silk Road, plus hitting those middlemen in between. So it wasn't necessarily an easy journey for a lot of people to take. These countries hoped that they'd be able to find a way to travel to Asia by water. A water route would technically be faster for them. So if you lived right here in India, this would be a great way to travel back and forth. But if you live all the way down here, Spain, Portugal, it's going to take just as long to go this way. They were hoping to find a way through the water to connect over here to China. From around 1400 to 1600, the Renaissance took place in Europe, and the Renaissance was a time when people were focused on science and technology. And Renaissance actually is kind of loosely translated to rebirth. So this was a time where all kinds of new information were available. People were really focused on learning more things as far as science and technology goes. And when we hear technology, we think of smartphones and computers, but it's a different type of technology. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But the technology at this time was mostly related to traveling and how people could get from one place to another quicker and safer. People were excited about exploring and learning new things. They came up with many new ideas. The area that improved the most was sea travel. Faster ships, better compasses, and improved map-making tools were a few of the key inventions during this time period, which makes a lot of sense to me. That would make sea travel a lot more accessible and a lot safer if the ships were faster. If they had good compasses, those compasses helped them to navigate, right? And improved map-making tools. So if you don't have a map, it's going to be really difficult to find, especially if we're looking here. Could you imagine getting all the way from here over to here with no maps? So the fact that they had some new and improved map-making tools, they could chart where they were going, made things much, much easier and safer. And because of that, people were interested in exploring. It seemed to become a lot safer and a lot easier for people to do so, and so they wanted to travel, they wanted to explore. Prince Henry lived in Portugal during the Renaissance. Henry was passionate about training men to travel by water. He wanted to teach them how to use the new technology that was made for sea traveling. So like we said, that technology would be those ships, the compasses, the improved map making. So he wanted to show people how to use these tools to their benefit. He helped Portugal become the first country to find an all-water route to Asia. So they were able to do that connecting from here all the way down and around Africa in some places to connect over here to Asia. And Asia being, Europe is the continent where all of these countries are located. Asia is this entire other landmass. So Asia is a huge, huge area and a huge continent, but they were able to find an all-water route there. So that made this really, really big business for Spain and Portugal. Prince Henry became known as Prince Henry the Navigator. He set up a training school for explorers. The school was called the School of Navigation. In the school, sailors learned how to use and navigate ships. Portugal spent a lot of money on expeditions or exploratory trips. So expeditions mean trips where you went exploring during this time. So Prince Henry was really, really, really important during this time, especially to Portugal, but not just to Portugal, to all of these European countries that started to explore. He had this school, and the main purpose of the school was to help people become explorers, to learn more and more about traveling by sea, about exploring new places, moving to new places. And a fast fact about Prince Henry was he kind of led this age of exploration. He trained and encouraged many men to explore unknown areas. One of the interesting things I think about Prince Henry is he didn't really take any expeditions. He didn't really go exploring. Most of his time was spent teaching others how to do so and then giving them the tools that they needed to go to explore. So that's pretty cool that he was that passionate about something that he really didn't do very often. Before the Renaissance, people thought it was extremely dangerous to travel to new lands. I don't blame them, right? I would imagine it would be super dangerous, and here are some reasons why. They had wild ideas about what existed in unknown places. They heard stories of sea monsters eating ships. That would make me not want to go. They also thought that the sun was so close to the sea that it boiled the water and could set fire to ships. So we talked about in our vocabulary the word horizon. That's where the land and the sky meet, or in this case, the sea and the sky meet. So that would kind of make sense if you were to look out when the sun was setting. It would look like the sun was almost in the water. So they thought that it was actually boiling the water and setting fire to ships. Many people were not interested in exploring. If those were the thoughts that you had, I think you would probably agree that I wouldn't want to go exploring if there are sea monsters and boiling water out there. However, when the Renaissance began, people became excited about learning new things. They had new technology to make sea travel safer and easier, and a group of explorers started to form. This time period in history became known as the Age of Exploration. When they say age, they mean kind of like a time period. So essentially, just a time period where people were exploring a lot, not just from one country, but from several countries, and mostly focused right here in Europe, a lot of these countries that are here in Europe. During this time, many explorers went out in search of learning and finding new things. The brave journeys of the first explorers inspired many others to explore as well. More and more people left Europe to explore new places. These explorers found whole continents they didn't even know existed. So, we have a nice map of our planet now, but at that time, they only knew essentially their country and maybe a few countries around them, maybe the continent that was next door, but they were discovering brand new places that they didn't even know existed during this time. They started a system of trading goods all over the world. This made countless discoveries. The brave explorers from the Age of Exploration changed the world. So now what you're going to do is you're going to use this reading. You can either pull up the actual the link to the reading, or if you want to just listen to this video while you answer the questions, there are 5 questions on the next page that you're going to work through, and I'll give you the directions for that when you get there. Good luck.